In the time before time, when the earth was still a young, wild place and the gods themselves still walked among mortals, there was a perfect, unwavering balance, a divine order that governed all things. The boundless sky, with its churning clouds and bolts of lightning, was the domain of mighty Zeus, the king of the gods. The earth below, a tapestry of green forests, soaring mountains and fertile plains, was nurtured by the gentle hand of Gaia, the mother of all. And the vast, churning seas, deep and mysterious, answered to the command of the powerful Poseidon. Between these immense realms caught in the grand design was humankind, fragile, ephemeral, yet within their hearts beat a quiet pulse of incredible potential. Zeus, in his wisdom, had gifted the world order and structure. He had decreed the place for every living thing. Yet one being, a titan named Prometheus, looked down from the heavens and saw things differently. His gaze fell upon the shivering, huddled forms of early humans. He saw their struggle against the biting cold of the long nights, their constant hunger, their vulnerability in a world of giants and gods. He saw their weakness, but more importantly, he saw their capacity for more. And in his compassionate heart, a tiny spark began to glow. It wasn't a spark of rebellion or defiance against Zeus. It was a spark of pure, profound mercy. He yearned to give them a gift, something to lift them from the darkness and empower them to shape their own destiny. Little did he know this single compassionate spark of an idea was about to ignite a firestorm. It would set in motion a chain of events so monumental, so irreversible, that it would forever alter the course of history and redefine the very destiny of the human race. The world stood on the precipice of a new dawn, one forged in forbidden fire. Have you ever wondered where the first spark came from? Not just the spark of fire, but the spark of ambition, of civilization, of everything that makes us human? Our story begins in the age of myth, on a mountain so high it touched the heavens, Olympus, home of the gods. In the dark stillness of its halls, a divine flame shimmered. This was no ordinary fire. It was the source of divine power, of immortality, of knowledge. It was the heart of the gods, and it was strictly forbidden to mortals. Down below on the cold, dark earth, humankind huddled in caves, living in fear of the night and the beasts that roamed in it. They were fragile, ignorant, and forgotten, but not by everyone. One titan, whose name meant forethought, watched them with a heart full of pity and love. His name was Prometheus. He saw not what they were, but what they could become. He saw their potential for greatness, trapped in the chilling darkness. Standing before the sacred fire on Olympus, its golden light dancing in his determined eyes, Prometheus made a decision that would change the course of history forever. He looked down at the world of mortals, then back at the forbidden flame. "Let them see light," he whispered to the silent halls, a promise made to the shadows. "Let them see the world as the gods see it." With a resolve that defied the king of the gods himself, Prometheus reached out. His hand trembled not from fear, but from the sheer audacity of his act. He stole a single glowing ember from the divine hearth and concealed it within the hollow stalk of a fennel reed. With this stolen star, this seed of rebellion, he descended from the heavens, leaving the realm of the gods behind to walk among mortals. Imagine that moment. The first human hand reaching out tentatively to touch the warmth Prometheus offered. As their fingers brushed against the reed, a brilliant flame erupted. For the first time, light pushed back the unending night. The darkness that had haunted humanity since its birth finally fled. With this gift, everything changed. They learned to cook their food, driving away sickness and hunger. They learned to forge metal, creating tools to build homes and plow fields. They gathered around the crackling flames, sharing stories, ideas, and dreams. The fire warmed their bodies, but more importantly, it ignited their minds. Art, science, philosophy, community, all were born from this single stolen spark. Humanity began to look up at the stars, not in fear, but in wonder. But while civilization flickered to life on Earth, a storm was brewing on Olympus. The king of the gods, Zeus, looked down from his throne and saw the unthinkable. He saw the light of his sacred fire dancing in the mortal world. The scent of cooked meat, a sacrifice once reserved for the gods, now rose from human settlements. He saw mortals building cities, their ambition shining as brightly as the fire they now wielded. And he was enraged. The sky cracked with a deafening roar. Thunder rolled across the heavens, a sound of pure fury. Zeus's voice, a tempest of divine wrath, broke the celestial silence. Prometheus has defied me. He has given our power to these insignificant creatures of clay. For his love of mortals, he will suffer an eternity of torment. The sentence was absolute. The god of the forge, Hephaestus, was ordered to carry it out. Prometheus, the champion of mankind, was dragged to the desolate peaks of the Caucasus Mountains. There he was bound in unbreakable chains to a sheer rock face, suspended between the heavens he had betrayed and the earth he had tried to save. His punishment was designed to be a spectacle of unending agony. Every single day, a great eagle, a monstrous creature born of gods, would descend from the sky. It would land upon his chest, tear into his flesh with its cruel beak and devour his liver. And every night, as the cold stars watched over his torment, his divine nature would heal him. His body would become whole again, his liver regrowing, only so the torture could begin anew at sunrise. Day after day, year after year, century after century, he endured the searing pain, the relentless cycle of suffering, his silent screams echoing in the lonely mountains. He was paying the ultimate price for his compassion. Yet through it all, Prometheus never once regretted his gift to humanity. But Zeus's anger was not quenched by Prometheus's suffering alone. His gaze fell upon the world of mortals, now basking in the warmth of their stolen light. He saw their progress, their laughter, their newfound confidence, and he saw it as an insult. He decided they too must be punished for accepting the forbidden gift. If Prometheus gave them fire, Zeus declared to the assembled gods, a chilling smile on his lips, then I shall give them a gift of my own. I will give them a curse so beautiful they will welcome it with open arms. I will give them hope, and I will give them sorrow to follow it like a shadow. I will give them curiosity, wrapped in beauty and bound in sorrow. And so, from clay and water, the gods fashioned the first woman. Aphrodite gave her unparalleled beauty and grace. Hermes gave her a clever and cunning tongue. The Graces adorned her with exquisite jewelry, and Athena clothed her in stunning silver robes. They named her Pandora, which means all gifted. She was a masterpiece of divine creation, a marvel to behold. But in her hands, Zeus placed a final gift, a sealed jar or a box, depending on the telling of the tale. He warned her never, ever to open it. Zeus then presented Pandora to Prometheus's brother, Epimetheus, whose name meant afterthought. Despite Prometheus's prior warnings to never accept a gift from Zeus, Epimetheus was utterly captivated by Pandora's beauty and welcomed her. For a time they lived in happiness, but the sealed jar sat in their home, a silent, constant temptation. Pandora's divine gift of curiosity, planted by the gods, began to gnaw at her. What could be inside? What treasure or what secret was so important it had to be locked away? The temptation became unbearable. One day, her hands trembling, she lifted the lid just a tiny bit to peek inside. In that instant, a torrent of dark, shadowy forms burst forth from the jar and scattered across the world. These were all the evils Zeus had sealed within: sickness, death, envy, hatred, pain, and all the sorrows that would plague mankind for all time. In terror, Pandora slammed the lid shut, but it was too late. All the evils were free. Weeping in despair at what she had unleashed, Pandora heard a faint, fluttering sound from within the now closed jar. Hesitantly, she opened it one last time. Out flew a single, small, bright creature, flickering like a firefly. It did not fly away and spread darkness. Instead, it hovered gently, bringing a soft light to the now shadowed world. This was Elpis, the spirit of hope. It was the last thing in the jar, Zeus's final cruel twist. He had afflicted humanity with every possible misery, but left them with the one thing that would ensure they would endure it all: hope. And so, the story of Prometheus is not just about the theft of fire. It's the story of our own existence. We live in a world filled with the suffering Pandora unleashed, yet we carry the fire of Prometheus in our hearts. the drive to innovate, to create, to strive for a better world. And at the bottom of it all, when darkness seems overwhelming, we have what was left in that fateful jar, the unbreakable, flickering light of hope. Prometheus remains chained to his rock, a timeless symbol of sacrifice, while we, his beloved humanity, live on with his dual legacy. A world of sorrow lit by a stolen fire and an enduring hope. Have you ever wondered about the origin of all the troubles in the world? Sickness, old age, jealousy, death. Where did they all come from? The ancient Greeks had a story for that, a tale of divine anger and a woman forged from clay and vengeance. It all begins on the shimmering peak of Mount Olympus, the home of the gods. Imagine the scene. The gods are gathered, the air thick and electric with divine power. At the center of it all, seated on his magnificent throne, is Zeus, the king of the gods. His face is a storm cloud, his eyes flashing with lightning. He's furious, and his anger is directed at a mortal, the titan Prometheus, who had defied him by stealing fire from the heavens and giving it to mankind. He will see, Zeus's voice thunders, shaking the very foundations of Olympus. He will learn that my gifts can destroy just as surely as they can bless. This wasn't just about punishment. It was about making a statement, a lesson that would echo through eternity. And so a plan, terrible and beautiful, began to form in the mind of the All-Father, a plan for a gift that was, in reality, a curse. Zeus turned his gaze to the master craftsman of the gods, his own son, Hephaestus, the god of the forge, fire, and metalworking. Hephaestus, known for his incredible skill, could create anything from mighty weapons to intricate automatons. "Hephaestus," Zeus commanded, his voice leaving no room for argument. "Forge me a woman, mold her from clay and water, make her more beautiful than the sunrise, more delicate than the petals of a spring blossom. Give her a form that will captivate the heart of any man who looks upon her." But this creation was not to be an act of love. It was an instrument of revenge. Zeus leaned in, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "But within her heart," he added, "place a spark of chaos, a seed of mischief." Hephaestus, ever obedient to his father's will, bowed his head and set to work. Down in his volcanic forge, amidst the clang of hammers and the hiss of cooling metal, Hephaestus began his masterpiece. He took the finest clay, mixing it with sacred water. With his skilled, powerful hands, he molded her form. He shaped her limbs to be graceful, her face to be a perfect oval. He sculpted her lips with a subtle curve, and under his touch her eyes came to life, shimmering with the soft colors of dawn. Her skin was like warm, polished ivory. She was breathtaking, a work of art that surpassed even his own divine standards. But as he worked, he remembered Zeus's command and wove a thread of restless energy, a flicker of insatiable curiosity, into the very core of her being. She was a masterpiece, yes, but one born from a desire for vengeance. Once the clay form was complete and brought to life, Zeus presented her to the other Olympians. They marveled at her beauty. "She is a wonder," they whispered among themselves. And then, one by one, Zeus commanded them to bestow a gift upon this new creation, to make her utterly irresistible. First came Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty herself. She smiled, a hint of professional jealousy in her eyes, and blessed the clay woman with unparalleled charm, grace, and a deep, burning desire that would make her impossible to ignore. Next, the wise and strategic Athena stepped forward. She gifted her with practical skills, the ability to weave and spin with incredible dexterity. But Athena, goddess of wisdom, also gave her another, more dangerous gift, a keen, questioning mind, a powerful and unrelenting curiosity. Then came Hermes, the fleet-footed messenger of the gods, the trickster with a silver tongue. He leaned close and whispered into her ear, granting her the power of cunning words, the ability to persuade, to flatter, and to deceive with a voice as sweet as honey. She could now twist the truth without ever telling an outright lie. Apollo, the god of music, poetry, and prophecy, gave her the gift of a beautiful voice, the ability to play any instrument, and a grace that made her every movement seem like a dance. He taught her to sing songs that could soothe a savage beast or stir the heart to passion. Each god added their own touch, layering gifts upon gifts. Because she had received a gift from every one of them, they gave her a name, Pandora. It means the all-gifted. She was perfect. She was charming, intelligent, talented, and impossibly beautiful. She was everything a man could ever dream of, and that was precisely the point. She was the perfect trap. Finally, when all the other gods had given their gifts, Zeus himself stepped forward. In his hands he held a small, ornate box. It was beautifully crafted, made of dark, polished wood and secured with intricate golden latches. It seemed to hum with a strange, contained energy. He presented the box to Pandora. "Take this," he said, his lips curving into a faint, unreadable smile. It was a smile that held no warmth, only the cold satisfaction of a plan perfectly executed. "This is my gift to you. It is a very special jar. Guard it well." He paused, letting his next words sink in. "There is only one rule you must follow. Never, under any circumstances, are you to open it." Pandora, the all-gifted, looked from the box to the face of the mighty Zeus. With the curiosity Athena had given her already stirring in her heart, she accepted the gift. She had no idea that she was not just a woman, but a vessel for the world's sorrows, a pawn in a divine game of retribution. Her story, and the story of humanity's suffering, was about to begin. Prometheus, he was the brother of the famous firebringer Prometheus. But where Prometheus was cunning and forward-thinking, Prometheus was, well, his name literally means afterthought. He was kind-hearted, but often acted first and thought later. After Prometheus's defiant act of giving fire to humanity, Zeus, the king of the gods, was seething. He wasn't content with just punishing Prometheus. He wanted to teach mankind a lesson, a permanent reminder of the gods' power. And so, he devised a plan, a gift for humanity that was both beautiful and terrible. He commanded Hephaestus, the divine craftsman, to mold a woman from clay. Athena breathed life into her and taught her needlework. Aphrodite blessed her with irresistible beauty and grace. The Graces and the Hours adorned her with golden jewelry and garlands of fresh flowers. Finally, Hermes, the messenger god, gave her a cunning mind and a persuasive tongue. They named her Pandora, meaning all-gifted, for she was the creation of all the gods. And in her hands, Hermes placed a final gift from Zeus, a sealed jar, or as later stories would call it, a box. Hermes escorted the breathtaking Pandora down from Mount Olympus, straight to the doorstep of the unsuspecting Prometheus. When Prometheus opened his door, he was utterly captivated. Pandora was a vision. She moved with the lightness of a breeze, her voice was like a melody, and her laughter was pure sunshine. He was instantly, hopelessly, in love. A small voice in the back of his mind echoed a warning from his brother Prometheus, who had told him sternly, "Prometheus, never, ever accept any gift from Zeus. His kindness is a mask for his trickery." But looking at Pandora, her eyes wide with a gentle curiosity about the world, how could such a perfect being be a trap? Love, as it so often does, silenced the voice of reason. Prometheus welcomed her into his home, and with her she brought the mysterious box. Pandora was enchanted by the mortal world. She found wonder in everything: the texture of a leaf, the song of a bird, the dance of a flame in the hearth. Her joy was infectious, and Prometheus's simple home was filled with a light it had never known before. But as the days passed, one object began to dominate Pandora's thoughts. In a quiet corner of the room sat the box. It wasn't just any box, it was a work of art, intricately carved with golden runes that seemed to shimmer and pulse in the firelight. It was beautiful, sealed, and utterly forbidden. "What's inside?" she asked Prometheus one evening, her voice a soft whisper. "A gift from the gods," he replied, his tone serious. "But Prometheus warned me it must never, ever be opened." That command, however, was like a seed planted in the fertile ground of Pandora's curiosity. Days turned into weeks, and the box became an obsession. It seemed to call to her. During the day, her gaze would drift towards it. At night, when the world was quiet, she imagined she could hear faint whispers seeping from beneath the lid. "Pandora," they seemed to hiss, "open us, don't you want to see the glorious secrets the gods have hidden away just for you?" Just a peek. No one has to know." The whispers grew more insistent, twisting around her thoughts, promising knowledge and wonders beyond her imagination. The box was no longer just a beautiful object. It was a test, a tantalizing mystery that she felt compelled to solve. The internal struggle was immense. On one hand, she had the love and trust of Prometheus and his solemn warning. On the other, there was the unbearable weight of the unknown, the constant, nagging, "What if?" The whispers promised so much. Were they treasures? Divine secrets? Powers she could wield? The curiosity became a physical ache, a restless energy that gave her no peace. Every day the temptation grew stronger. She would run her fingers over the smooth carved wood, tracing the golden runes, feeling a strange energy humming beneath her touch. She knew it was wrong. She knew she was forbidden. But the desire to know, just to know, was becoming all-consuming. Finally, one day when Prometheus was away, Pandora found herself standing before the box, alone. The house was silent, except for the frantic beating of her own heart and the imagined whispers that were now screaming in her mind. "Open it. Now. See what you're missing." Her hands trembled as she reached for the lid. A moment of hesitation, a final flash of Prometheus's trusting face, but it was too late. The curiosity was a tidal wave, and it swept all reason away. With a deep breath, she unlatched the heavy lid and lifted it just a crack to peer inside. It was not treasures or secrets that flew out. It wasn't a glorious light. Instead, a dark, thick swarm of grotesque shapes burst from the box with a horrifying shriek. They were the spites, the evils of the world that Zeus had trapped inside. Sickness, sorrow, poverty, crime, hate, envy, and countless other miseries that had, until that moment, been unknown to humankind. They swarmed out into the world, a plague of darkness, spreading pain and suffering wherever they went. Pandora, terrified, slammed the lid shut, but it was too late. All the evils were already free. The world that had been a simple, happy place for humanity was now filled with hardship and despair. Heartbroken and filled with regret, Pandora wept over what she had done. She had disobeyed, and her curiosity had unleashed a permanent curse upon the world. As she sat crying, she heard a tiny, faint, fluttering sound from within the now closed box. It was a gentle, fragile sound, nothing like the horrible screeching of the evils. Hesitantly, she lifted the lid one more time. A single, small, bright creature with shimmering wings fluttered out. It didn't fly away to cause chaos. It was the one good thing Zeus had placed in the box, perhaps as an afterthought, or perhaps as a final, cruel twist of the knife, a way to make humanity endure the suffering he had unleashed. And so, even as sickness, sorrow, and all manner of troubles plagued humanity, hope remained. It was the light that flickered in the darkest of times, the force that encouraged people to get up after they fell, to keep going even when things seemed impossible. The story of Pandora's box is a powerful tale about curiosity, consequences, and the origins of both suffering and resilience in the human experience. It serves as a stark reminder that some doors are best left unopened, but also assures us that even when the worst has happened, a glimmer of hope always remains to see us through the darkness. Have you ever heard the saying, "Curiosity killed the cat"? Well, in Greek mythology, curiosity didn't just kill a cat. It unleashed chaos upon the entire world. This is the story of Pandora and her infamous box. It all began with a wedding, as many great stories do. The wedding of Peleus and Thetis, to be exact. All the gods and goddesses were invited, except for one, Eris, the goddess of discord. Unsurprisingly, she was not happy about being snubbed, so she decided to crash the party in her own special way. She tossed a golden apple into the crowd, inscribed with the words, "For the fairest." Instantly, three powerful goddesses, Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite, laid claim to it. The resulting argument was so intense that Zeus, king of the gods, wisely wanted nothing to do with it. He passed the buck to a mortal, a handsome Trojan prince named Paris. Each goddess offered him a bribe. Hera promised him power over all of Asia. Athena offered him wisdom and victory in battle. But Aphrodite, goddess of love, offered him something he couldn't resist, the most beautiful woman in the world, Helen of Sparta. Paris, being a young man, chose Aphrodite. He awarded her the golden apple, and in doing so sealed the fate of his city, Troy. But that's a story for another day. This decision angered Hera and Athena immensely. But the one most offended by this whole affair was Prometheus, the titan who had championed mankind. He had stolen fire from the gods and given it to mortals, a transgression for which Zeus was determined to make not just him, but all of humanity pay. Zeus, ever the master of elaborate revenge, ordered Hephaestus, the god of the forge, to create a new being, a woman, crafted from earth and water, endowed with gifts from all the gods. Aphrodite gave her unparalleled beauty and charm. Hermes gave her a cunning and deceitful heart. Athena taught her the fine arts of weaving. They named her Pandora, which means all-gifted. Pandora was Zeus's masterpiece of vengeance, a beautiful trap for mankind. He presented her as a bride to Prometheus, the slow-witted brother of Prometheus. Prometheus, whose name means forethought, had warned his brother never to accept any gifts from Zeus. But Prometheus, whose name means afterthought, was completely captivated by Pandora's beauty. He forgot his brother's warning and welcomed her with open arms. Along with Pandora, Zeus sent a wedding gift, a beautifully ornate box, or in some tellings, a large jar. It was locked and sealed, and it came with a single stern warning: do not, under any circumstances, open it. Now imagine this. You're living in a world of idyllic perfection. The sun is always shining, food is plentiful, and no one knows sickness or sadness. Life is good. And in the middle of your home sits a mysterious, forbidden box. Prometheus was content to leave it be, but Pandora was different. She was gifted with an insatiable curiosity, a trait cleverly bestowed upon her by the gods. The box called to her. What could be inside? Was it jewels, silks, perhaps divine secrets? The mystery gnawed at her day and night. She would trace the intricate carvings on its surface, her fingers hovering over the lock, her mind racing with possibilities. Prometheus would often find her staring at it, lost in thought. "Pandora, my love," he'd say. "Zeus himself forbade it. Let it be." She would nod, promising to ignore it, but the promise was always short-lived. The need to know what was inside became an obsession. It was a constant whisper in the back of her mind, a relentless pull on her soul. She reasoned with herself, trying to justify her desire. Surely, she thought, a gift meant to be seen cannot be meant to be hidden forever. What harm could one little peek do? The temptation was becoming unbearable. One morning, as golden sunlight poured through the window, Pandora could bear it no longer. The house was quiet. Prometheus was out tending the fields. It was just her and the box. She approached it, her hands trembling. Her heart raced, but it wasn't just fear she felt. It was a thrilling, electric sense of wonder. Her fingers brushed the golden lid. The air in the room seemed to hold its breath, thick with anticipation. With a final, decisive breath, she took the key. Some say Hermes had conveniently shown her where it was hidden, and unlocked the box. Then she opened it. For a moment, nothing happened, and then a single, sibilant whisper escaped from the crack. It was followed by another and another, until a storm of dark, shadowy forms burst forth. Out poured every evil imaginable, swirling into the pristine air like a plume of black smoke. Disease, sorrow, envy, greed, hatred, pain, and death. All the miseries that mankind had never known. They scattered across the world like wildfire, infecting the hearts of men and women, turning their laughter to cries and their peace to turmoil. Pandora screamed, slamming the lid shut, but it was too late. The malevolent spirits were already loose, spreading their poison across the globe. The world outside her window began to change. The vibrant flowers wilted and turned brown. The sky, once a brilliant blue, grew dim and overcast. The joyful songs of birds were replaced by an eerie silence. Even the gods on Mount Olympus fell silent, watching the tragedy they had orchestrated unfold. Pandora fell to her knees, the now empty box before her, and tears of guilt and despair streamed down her face. "What have I done?" she wailed, her voice lost in the sudden coldness of the world. She had been the instrument of humanity's downfall, Just as she was consumed by utter hopelessness, she heard a faint, tiny tapping from inside the box she had just slammed shut. Terrified of what else might be lurking within, she hesitated. But the tapping was gentle, persistent. It didn't sound like the hissing horrors that had escaped. It was a fluttering, delicate sound. Cautiously trembling, she lifted the lid one more time, just a crack. A single tiny creature, shimmering with a soft, warm light, fluttered out. It wasn't a monster. It wasn't a plague. It was hope. Elpis, the spirit of hope, was the last thing in the box. While all the evils had rushed out to torment the world, hope had remained behind, trapped. It hovered around Pandora, its gentle light pushing back the shadows that clung to her. It couldn't undo the damage. It couldn't put the evils back in the box. Sickness, sorrow, and death were now a permanent part of the human experience. But hope gave humanity something to cling to in the face of this new, harsh reality. It was the promise that even in the darkest of times, there is always a reason to carry on, a glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel. And so the myth of Pandora's box is not just a story about the origin of evil. It's also a powerful story about the resilience of the human spirit. It teaches us that while life will inevitably bring us pain and hardship, it also provides us with the hope necessary to endure it. It's the reason we get up in the morning after a terrible day, the reason we fight through illness, and the reason we find the strength to comfort each other in times of grief. All because one curious woman, in a moment of weakness, also managed to release a final saving grace upon the world. Prometheus found her huddled on the floor, her shoulders shaking with sobs. The ornate box lay open beside her, its lid cast aside. A dark, oppressive silence had fallen over the world, a stark contrast to the vibrant life that had filled it only moments before. You opened it," he whispered, his voice a fragile thread of disbelief. The words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of what she had done. Pandora looked up, her face streaked with tears, her eyes wide with a terror that mirrored his own. "I didn't mean to," she cried, her voice cracking. I had to know. I only wanted to understand what was inside." The world they knew was gone, replaced by a landscape of fear and sorrow. The creatures that had escaped the box were already spreading across the land. Sickness, jealousy, misery, greed. A world once perfect was now forever tainted, and it was all her fault. The weight of that knowledge was a crushing burden, a guilt so profound she thought it would shatter her completely. But then, through the suffocating silence, a new sound emerged. It was faint, almost imperceptible at first, soft, gentle. It was like the fluttering of a butterfly's wings or the quiet, steady rhythm of a heartbeat. It was a sound of life in a world that now seemed filled only with despair. Pandora's head snapped up, her tears momentarily forgotten. "Listen," she whispered, her voice filled with a desperate urgency. She pointed a trembling finger toward the source of the sound, the box. Prometheus strained his ears, and he heard it too. A delicate, persistent whisper of a sound, a tiny spark of defiance against the encroaching darkness. Hope stirred in his chest, a feeling he hadn't realized he'd already lost. Something was still inside. One thing had remained when all the evils of the world had flown out. With newfound resolve, Pandora reached for the lid. Her hands were still shaking, not with fear this time, but with a fragile, burgeoning anticipation. What could possibly be left? What could possibly counter the horrors she had unleashed? She lifted the lid one last time, slowly, cautiously, and from within, a soft, golden light emerged. It didn't burst forth like the horrors before it. Instead, it flowed out gently, a warm, liquid luminescence that seemed to push back the shadows. The light wrapped around them, a comforting embrace that soothed their frayed nerves and calmed their racing hearts. It didn't erase the cold dread that had settled over the world, but it made it bearable. It was a single candle in an endless night. "What is it?" Prometheus asked, his voice full of wonder as he stared at the beautiful ethereal glow dancing in the air. A small, genuine smile touched Pandora's lips for the first time since she had opened the box. The warmth of the light filled her, chasing away some of the guilt and despair. She felt a strength she didn't know she possessed returning to her. "Hope," she said, her voice clear and certain. "The gods left us hope." It was the one thing that could not be conquered by the evil she had set free. It was the promise of a new dawn after the longest night, the strength to face the suffering, the belief that even in the darkest of times, things could get better. High above on Mount Olympus, Zeus, the king of the gods, watched the scene unfold. He had orchestrated this, had sent the beautiful Pandora with her cursed gift as a punishment for mankind, for Prometheus's theft of fire. He had watched as the evils poured out, as humanity's golden age came to a bitter end. But as he saw the golden light of hope embrace the two mortals, a faint, knowing smile touched his lips. He had not intended to be entirely cruel. He understood a fundamental truth about the mortals he had helped create. Even in suffering, he murmured to the heavens, his voice a low rumble of thunder, they must have a reason to endure. And that reason was hope, the last and greatest gift from the gods, forever intertwined with the sorrows of the world. And so, humanity learned to live in a world filled with hardship and pain. They faced sickness, they battled greed, they felt the sting of jealousy and the ache of loss, but they were never truly alone in their struggle. For whenever the darkness seemed too great, whenever despair threatened to consume them, they could always find that small golden light flickering within their hearts, the light of hope, Pandora's final gift, reminding them to keep fighting, to keep believing, and to always look for the sunrise. In the quiet aftermath, after the storm of chaos had been unleashed, the years began to fold one into the next, like pages in a long and arduous book. Humanity, scattered and shaken, slowly learned to live with what had escaped Pandora's curious grasp. Sickness, a chilling whisper that could fell the strongest warrior. Jealousy, a green-eyed monster that soured the sweetest bonds. Pain, a sharp and constant companion in a world that was no longer a gentle paradise. These weren't just abstract evils anymore. They were woven into the very fabric of daily life. A child's fever, a neighbor's envious glance, the ache of a broken heart, they were the new unwelcome tenants of the human soul. The world, once a canvas of pure, unblemished joy, was now streaked with the dark, somber colors of suffering. And yet, something remarkable began to happen. In the face of these new hardships, humanity did not simply crumble. They adapted. They fought back. For every new ailment that surfaced, they sought a cure, a remedy, a soothing balm. For every act of envy, there arose an act of forgiveness, a hand extended in reconciliation. For every pang of pain, there was a comforting embrace, a shared tear, a moment of profound empathy. Humanity learned that shadow only exists because of light. And so, in this new world of contrasts, other qualities equally powerful began to shine through the gloom. Courage was born not in the absence of fear, but in the defiance of it. A farmer planting seeds in a field ravaged by blight. A mother protecting her child from unseen dangers. This was courage in its purest form. Compassion blossomed from shared suffering. When you have felt the sting of loss, you understand the grief in another's eyes. When you have known hunger, you share your last piece of bread. People began to look at one another, not just as individuals, but as fellow travelers on a difficult road, bound together by their common struggles. And faith not just in the gods who watched from their lofty perch on Olympus, but faith in each other, in the turning of the seasons, in the promise of a new dawn, became the anchor that held them steady. They learned to build stronger homes, not just of wood and stone, but of community and trust. They learned to heal wounds, both of the body and of the spirit. And most importantly, they learned to love again, a love made fiercer and more precious by the ever-present possibility of loss. It was a resilient, hard-won love, tempered in the fires of adversity. Through all of this, through every hardship and every small victory, a quiet, persistent whisper could be heard. It was the voice of hope. It didn't roar like a lion or command like a king. It was a gentle murmur in the heart of a grieving widow, a flicker of light in a dark and lonely night. Hope was the melody that played under the cacophony of despair. It was the force that taught mankind not to curse the darkness, but to light a candle. It taught them to look at a field of ash and envision a future forest. It taught them that a broken bone could mend stronger than before. It was hope that whispered, "Try again," after every failure. "Heal," after every injury. "Love," after every heartbreak. It was the final and most potent gift from the box. And what of Pandora, the woman at the center of it all? She who had, in a moment of irresistible curiosity, changed the world forever. She lived on, her name echoing through the generations. But over time, the story began to change. The sharp edges of blame began to soften. She was forever burdened by the knowledge of what she had done, a heavy cloak she could never cast aside. Yet she also became forever remembered, not as a villain, but as a complex and crucial part of humanity's story. She became a symbol, not a symbol of evil unleashed or of divine punishment for disobedience. No, her legacy was far more nuanced, far more profound. Pandora became a symbol of the beautiful, terrifying, and untamable nature of curiosity. The very same impulse that drove her to open the box is the same impulse that drives a scientist to discover, an artist to create, an explorer to venture into the unknown. It is the engine of progress, the spark of innovation, but it carries with it an inherent risk. Her story was a reminder that knowledge often comes at a price, and that some doors once opened can never be closed again. She symbolized the delicate balance between the desire to know and the wisdom to leave some mysteries unsolved. But even more than that, she became a symbol of what comes after the fall. She represented the incredible, indomitable resilience that follows despair. Her story wasn't about the end of the world, it was about the beginning of a new one. It's a story about how we as humans find our greatest strength not when life is easy, but when it is overwhelmingly hard. It's about our capacity to find meaning in suffering, to build beauty from ruins, and to hold on to a sliver of light when surrounded by an ocean of darkness. And so even the gods, looking down upon the world they had indirectly changed, saw the profound truth in this. They saw mortals who, despite being plagued by all the evils imaginable, still managed to laugh, to sing, to create, to dream. And they acknowledged the power of their final, most enduring gift. For they understood then, as we understand now, a fundamental truth of the human experience. Even when darkness spreads and seems to consume everything in its path, even when all seems lost, hope will always remain. It is the last to leave, the final, brightest gift, waiting patiently at the bottom of the box, ready to light our way forward. Thank you so much for watching. If this story resonated with you, consider giving this video a like and subscribing to the channel for more tales that explore the depths of our shared human story. We'll see you in the next one.